Right, so today on the show, we are returning to the subject area of general health and well-being, which is quite important given the times in which we're now living. One or two challenges, and possibly all the more important if certain things are on the way, as so many have been telling us they are in the coming days. I'm sure we're all feeling the stress and the anxiety of the testing circumstances in which we're being forced to live, whatever part of the world we're in. And it's also very easy, I find, from personal experience, to get very depressed and despondent and hopeless. So we're going to get into all of that today. And my guest is the CEO of Touchstone Essentials. The website is thegoodinside.com. And this is a company marketing various natural health and well-being products out of the US. Welcome to Eddie Stone. Welcome on, Eddie.
Hey, Mark, thank you for having me a chance to be with you and your audience today. It's an honor.
Great. What is your personal interest in the product you sell, first off, then? Did you have a kind of personal epiphany or an experience that got your interest raised in the products that you now market, or was there some other story behind it?
Well, it is personal. It's indirect. It's about my mom. So, to kind of sum it up, Detox saved my mom's life 30 some years ago. So my mom, Judy, she's alive and well today. To kind of advance the story, just so everybody knows, she was a young mom. So she had me when she was 18 years old. So we sort of, in some ways, kind of grew up together. And in the late 1980s, she was sick, right? At first, what seemed like maybe a cough or a cold, this kind of thing, but it persisted for months on end. We were visiting the doctor. We live in an area with a lot of university medical centers, visiting those doctors. And we're probably 12 to 18 months of this with her. And she's really not getting better. And in fact, I mean, I'm a layman, right? But in my view, looking at my mom and the way we all felt was she was sort of wasting away in front of us, not getting better, but in fact, getting worse. And yet all the universities and people we talked to, nobody had a real answer, right? It wasn't her diet. She wasn't a drinker or a smoker. I mean, there wasn't any of these sort of obvious things that be causing these problems. And ultimately, to give you some idea of how desperate this became, and I'm giving you the short version, but in the moment, we're so desperate. Somebody said, well, listen, I've got the name and number of a gentleman. He's kind of known as a quack, but he's one of these alternative medical doctors. And so we were of a mind, we're like, give us the number. We'll decide about the quack part. And it turns out he was an alternative medical person, and he was really focused on detoxification and using IV therapies, which wasn't something my mom or myself or my family knew anything about. But we were desperate enough that we gave it a try. And within a very short period of time, I'm talking about a few days, she was sort of showing some signs of recovery. And within a couple of weeks, right, she was having some energy back and things were improving. And so it was this sort of massive wake-up call to me about detoxification, not a subject really I knew a lot about. I'm 57 years old. This was 30 years ago. So in my late 20s, not something I'm considering. And it turns out in her case, the problem was she had had breast implants put in when she was younger, and her body had developed an autoimmune response to them. And so her body's fighting itself like you think of with AIDS or other crises of that kind. And so detoxification, and then thinking about not only interventionist sort of detoxification, but what she could do from a dietary standpoint to encourage or help her body detoxify, became the answers for her. And even in my own case, you sort of do these evaluations. At the time, I realized in my late 20s, even from 10 years prior when I was 17 or 18 years old, I'm not in the same shape. I've gained some weight. My cholesterol is high. I'm not headed towards a proper path. I'm sort of headed towards being a statistic of a person using high blood pressure medication, maybe type 2 diabetes medication. And so it made a profound impact on me that, ultimately became my career because of what happened to my mom and literally detox saving her life.
And what specific product was it that led to your mum being able to detox?
In her case, she was using an IV chelation that is a drug, right? It's a prescription drug. And the challenge with it, it can work, but it's not, it doesn't discern what it's taking out of the body. So people that have gone through these EDTA or other types of medications for this. It literally is stripping the minerals out of the body at intense levels. It can cause damage to the blood vessel wall. I mean, there's all kinds of things that come with it. So in her case, while that was a solution, it was simultaneously dangerous at the levels that she was using it. And really, it's a drug therapy when somebody becomes poisoned or detoxified. Largely, this stuff was originally put together, I believe, for dealing with radioactive toxicity. So it wasn't something with a long-term solution. So we focused shortly after that at looking at diet. What can you do? What do we know about the diet that we have that supports the body's innate ability and capacities through the liver, through the kidney, through the lungs, other means of detoxifying? So things like green leafy vegetables, high fiber diets, as sort of mundane as those things sound, even increasing your intakes can have a very positive impact. So there's a lot you can do at the kitchen table, but of course, most people don't live a life where that can just be this focus all day long, and hence the role of supplements. But one thing I learned pretty quickly about supplements is, for the most part, they're made like fast food, right? Fast food or ultra processed food, which really is the bulk of the calories people consume in the developed parts of the world. They're just taking parts and pieces of food to make them cook fast or stay stored longer. Think of the difference. Say this is sort of a simple example of something like an apple pie, right? Which doesn't necessarily have to have a lot of apple in it versus the apple, right? And so when you look at whole food and all of the micronutrients and constituents that go in there, like broccoli or kale or cabbage, I mean, there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of micronutrients. We don't fully understand all of them, right? And so it gets a little complicated, but I also think it's really common sense to just sort of realize there's things going on in nature that have a broader impact than just the fact that broccoli can have some calcium in it or can have some vitamin C in it, right? There's much more to it than that. So in her case, where we really made the biggest gains was thinking about the quality of the food she was consuming and not have as much ultra processed food as you normally would think of. And wow, did her health respond, right? That next 5, 10, 15 years, I mean, it was just incredible the changes she went through. Simultaneously, I'm learning about supplements, right? I see this as an interest for me and how it can impact people's lives enough that I decided to make it my career, and that's evolved over time as well. But so that's really sort of that journey that we were on.
Sure. So I'm looking at your website here, and you've got a few key products. One of the main ones is this Zeolite Cellular Detox. I'm hearing a lot about zeolite right now, and I know one of the main marketing points is that it helps you detox heavy metals from the body. Many people will be surprised to learn that they've got heavy metals in them in the first place, and they'll be wondering how the hell they got there. So how do we take this stuff on?
Sure. And so let me just, for people that look at the site, we think of these things in three primary categories. There's detox, there's build, right? Take the bad stuff out, put some good stuff in. And then there's balance. So we have some CBD products for that purpose. But specific to detox, and our the part of what we sell that's doing the heavy lifting is the Zeolite products. We've got a product called Pure Body Regular that's really focused on the gut, and Pure Body Extra that's Cellular Detox. But the hero in all of that is a natural mineral called zeolite. And that's probably also a term most people aren't familiar with. I was first introduced to zeolites back in 2005. And it's interesting because they have a very remarkable quality. So for us as a company, we've chosen to work only with naturally mined zeolite called clinoptilolite. We mine it, very pristine location here in the United States. We purposefully do not work with synthetics or other man-mades because that's not where the safety data exists. And zeolite's been around a long time, hundreds of years. I won't bore everybody with all the stories, but they hold GRAS status with the US FDA, which stands for generally recognized as safe, and the equivalency in the European Union and all throughout Asia. So it's something we know a lot about. And here's the key point. This zeolite in its natural state has a negative charge that makes it attracted to or causes an attraction between heavy metals such as cadmium, lead, mercury, aluminum, other things that are disruptive to sort of the function of the body, cellular replication, damages the DNA, and other things. And we can get into where they all come from. But here's the bottom line. If you can just think for a moment about perhaps if you played with magnets as a child, and you've got the north end of a magnet and the south end of a magnet, and they get near each other and they sort of snap together. The zeolite has a very similar attraction to these heavy metals, but also other environmental pollutants such as volatile organics and the like that carry these sort of same characteristic. And what's really critical is there's no receptor sites in your body for zeolite. So once these things bind in the soft tissue, in the bloodstream, in the gut, they're going to carry out of your body, assuming sort of normal renal function, in about a 4 to 6 hour period of time. That's really remarkable because it's giving you a tool that you can fit into your daily health habits, your diet every day, so that you can systemically detox. Because here's what's critical. There's 100,000+ chemicals that are utilized in consumer goods all around the globe that have never been tested for their long-term impact on human beings at the gut level, at the cellular level, immune system, respiratory, whatever happens to be. And we're all, I mean, none of us living in the modern world, that's not really new news to us, right? We read about these things. We can get, though, lulled into sort of a lack of sort of recognition on a daily basis because there's so many chemicals out there, whether it's something you're using in your home to clean your house, right, and it smells noxious, or the exhaust coming out of a car. If you see a coal-fired power plant, you see what's coming out of the smokestack. You can look in the sky and see what's coming down from there. I mean, chemicals are everywhere, and there's no way really to avoid them. If you go and get your blood checked, if anybody that hears or sees this show goes and has their blood checked, or their hair, or their saliva, they'll have an alarming amount of heavy metals, volatile organics, all things that can damage their DNA, impact the quality of their life in the moment, energy level, cognitive function, sleep, recovery from exercise, or long-term, raising the risk of degenerative diseases such as cardiovascular disease, cancer, all these things. It's disruptive to how your body works, how our immune system recognizes cancer cells. I mean, there's just a host of things where your body's own native capacities are limited by these exposures, and it's not going to change, right? We live in a world where these things aren't going away. People aren't going to give up their mobile phones or the conveniences they enjoy or long-lasting fabrics or flying on airplanes, which are just absolutely filled with these toxins in the cockpit of the plane to keep them fire retardant or flame resistant. And so these things aren't going away. So we need to think about them in terms of management. In the same way, in your home, you probably think about the quality of the water you're drinking. You probably have some, discernment on the quality of the food that you're buying, air quality, water quality. If you're a farmer, they think about the soil quality and the microorganisms that live there that can't really live there in a polluted environment. So all of this is just, it's in our life and it's pervasive. What we lack most of the time is to acknowledge it and think, just as I'm thinking about the nutrients from my food, I ought to think about how to help my body detox. And so that's really where this springs from for us, because you just can't get away from it, right? You can't live in the bubble.
Yeah. If you didn't know better, you might have to conclude that there's a malevolent elite ruling class who are hell-bent on genociding us useless eaters. But I'm sure that's not the case. So does zeolite just come in liquid form? Or is it available in other forms?
Actually, it's not liquid. It's in a liquid state. And so zeolites are hardened minerals. And that's an important thing for someone to think about. If you happen to go onto a website and it says liquid zeolite, make sure you understand what they're trying to say, because there's no such thing. It's a hardened mineral, and the water is just simply a vehicle to get it in your body. Zeolites function best when sort of three things are paid attention to. One is prep. So zeolites have natural cages. Maybe think about visually a sponge, right, that has holes in it, and they're not all even, or whatever happens to be in those holes happen to have that negative charge. In our case, what we want to do is prep that environment so that it's more capable of interacting with the pollutants in the body. It's more capable of trapping in its cage or even to its surface, because there's multiple ways that it works. these toxins so they're more easily carried outside of the body. So we have a proprietary process. This is really what's special for us, is a proprietary process to prep the zeolite so it's more effective in the body. And one way we do that is we flood it with calcium, some magnesium, these natural minerals that our body utilizes. Taking the supplement is not a natural source of calcium and magnesium, but what it does do is it preps that cage for the ion exchange that's taking place. And so this process, another way to think about it for the audience, if you're familiar with the word antioxidants, right? Antioxidants come from fruits and vegetables, right? The more colorful they are, probably the higher in antioxidants that they are. Antioxidants, through ion exchange in the body, they neutralize free radicals. In this dynamic, the zeolite's very similar. So it goes in that body, it attracts and binds itself to the heavy metals. Now that heavy metal is essentially neutralized from this ion exchange. And so the first thing we do for effectiveness is we prep the cage. But the second is we mill it to a size that is better utilized in the body. And so here's the example I would give you. If you took a soccer ball, which most people can kind of visually, think about how big that is, or a volleyball, basketball, whatever you want to think of, it has a surface area, and it's a pretty big sphere, right? So it's going to have a good sized surface area. But if I take that surface area, if I take a basketball or a soccer ball and I cut it open and I pour inside marbles, for example, the collective surface area of those marbles is exponentially larger than the soccer ball they lie within. And so their ability to go into the body in this case and create more surface area for detoxification is better. So in our case, we mill our Pure Body Extra Strength, which is the most important detox product that we sell. We mill it to a nano size. We trap that in water so that it can go anywhere in your body water goes. I'm talking about traveling through the aquaprinas that literally service the cells in your body, the 100 trillion cells that make up your body. So this detox goes beyond what you think of, say, like a bowel cleanse or something of that nature. We're talking about down to a cellular level, because when you talk about things like cadmium, lead, mercury, things of this kind, you're talking an angstrom size particle, incredibly small, and it's disruptive on that cellular level in your body, right? So this is more than thinking about something in my gut. I've got to think about this more pervasively. And in fact, these kinds of toxins can affect brain function, right? So this is something where you've got to consider everywhere. So in our case, we pay careful attention to the sourcing. We want to prep the cage as much as possible. Now we focus on size, and we use water as delivery. You can go and buy a powdered zeolite. It just is not small enough, nor if it's in a powder form, has it been prepped or cleaned. There's just no way to do that because it's so small it can't be managed. That's why you have to put it in a liquid environment so that you can manage it. So there's things to consider, because you want to make sure what you're putting in there, all the safety work is there. That's what you have with clonoptilolite. We know about that safety work as a natural source. It's been prepped properly, because when you're fighting things like hexavalent chromium, for example, which we know is essentially deadly the way it attacks the nerves and affects the bodies in a lot of ways. Or when we're talking about C8, which commonly comes from Teflon, which we think of as forever chemicals, those things can get trapped inside the fat cells of the body, and they're not leaving unless you aid the body in that process. In fact, they become obesogens. There's plenty of people that will watch this, do a good job with their diet, they do a good job with their exercise, they manage stress properly, and they're overweight in a way they can't really identify what the heck's going on. It's in part because these same toxins I've been talking about not only can impact lung function, they can in fact impact the endocrine system in the body, central nervous system, appetite. They can also be referred to as obesogens because they can make it extremely difficult to control and maintain a healthy weight. So it's very broad in this regard, and that natural zeolite's just, it's, I don't want to use too much hyperbole, but it's almost a miracle little mineral how it works.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard the term obesogen. I've learned something today. So on your website, you've got the Pure Body Extra Zeolite Cellular Detox, and you've also got the Pure Body Zeolite in the spray form, Body and Digestive Detox. Are there circumstances in which one of these products would be more suitable than the other, or do they both have kind of universal applications?
Well, in some respect, they both do have a universal application, right? And so if you're trying to manage dollars or budget, right, you can sort of think about what makes sense for me. But in an ideal circumstance, the spray, which is referred to as Pure Body Extra, it's got a blue label. That's the product as a nano-sized particle. You spray it in your mouth. It's essentially going to absorb in your mouth mucosally and really has an opportunity to disperse throughout your entire body system, right? And you're talking about tens of thousands of tiny particles of zeolite working in your body when you're using that product. And so it's quite remarkable. More narrowly focused is the drops product. So those are always on our site represented by a dropper that you see in the body. We refer to that as Pure Body. I loosely call it Pure Body Regular. That has a mean average size of 0.4 microns. Remember that what I described earlier was a nano-sized product. The reason that's important is it's larger purposefully so that it will not escape principally the gut. So your gut will hold things inside it for the most part that are 0.4 microns or larger, sort of a natural protection by your body. That means that product's focus is on alkalizing your gut. We know that alkalinity is important, helping to support good microorganisms or good bacteria in your gut. And so it's really focused on the gut, where the other is focused on your entire cell system. So, and I realize for people there's some redundancy there, but the two systems are such the products can be used together, but we don't offer them together because we don't want to confuse the public.
Sure. Also on your site, you have CBD oil, Calm Premium CBD oil. What are the kind of applications for that? When might that be of use?
Well, when I talked earlier about detox, and then we call it build, right? Getting good nutrition in, things like superfoods. Then the other leg to the stool, right? The third part of all this we call balance. And very often people don't really consider significantly the role that stress, lack of sleep, nervous tension play in not just their overall health outcome. You've probably all read about somebody with a stressful life for a long time, not really invested in their health, that has a heart attack too early, or whatever it happens to be. There's all kinds of factors where stress is exacerbating a person's problems. And so of course, we would love to encourage people to learn to take those walks outside when that's possible. A lot of places around the world right now, you can't do that comfortably, or manage the stress from a relationship or the workplace or whatever it happens to be. Literally the term stress kills. It changes the chemistry in your body, and it makes you more vulnerable to literally everything because it erodes the function of your immune system, digestive system, lung function, all these things. CBD oil, which comes from the hemp plant, not to be confused with marijuana. It's the same plant, but it is grown differently with different attributes. In the States, and this is generally true in Europe, a plant that's got greater than 0.4% THC is considered marijuana for recreational use. 0.3 THC or under is called hemp compliant. All of our products are what we refer to as either 0 THC or 0.3, which is hemp compliant, right? That's what's allowed here in the States, and Europe is very similar in this regard. Those are products that can be used every day systemically to bring balance to what's referred to as your endocannabinoid system. You have natively an endocannabinoid system. That's what's fascinating about this, where your body can respond to plant-based endocannabinoids. We make cannabinoids in our body, particularly when we're younger, but like a lot of things as we get older, things change a little bit, right? We're less efficient than we used to be. And so you can use CBD to manage stress, just how you deal with the day. We've got people that use that product in the morning because by the time they get online and they start working and helping their kids with their schoolwork, and now their spouse works out of the house too, life is chaotic and they're almost looking for a drink, right? Which is not the proper way to try to manage these issues. And that's even in non-pandemic times, also useful, right? Before you get into the car and you've got a commute or you've got the train or whatever it happens to be. And so It is a very natural way to support your body's own native capacity to bring balance to the central nervous system, but that has repercussions beyond there because it can bring balance as well to how your respiratory function happens, how you manage your diet, executive function, right? Executive function, we don't think much about the ability to concentrate. And so they support this idea of balance. And I'll tell you what, if you pay attention to it, it's quite remarkable. I don't know, Mark, if you struggle with sleep or any of these kinds of things. One of the first thing I noticed was,
Oh, yes.
okay.
I do.
And you do these shows, right, late into your evenings. And I don't know about you, but if I'm doing shows like this, it gets into the late evening hours, I'm really wired up, right? It's not so easy.
You get all hyped up and you have to calm down again before you can rest.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, I don't want to think, well, I'll have a couple beers just before bed to do that. I don't do that. That doesn't make sense for tons of reasons. There's times and occasions where I might want to do that, but that's not it. And so something like the CBD, I put it under my tongue, then 10 or 15 minutes, right? It's almost like it takes me a little bit out of gear. And so it's just a little easier for me to kind of just takes the edge off in a way that the next day I don't feel it. I don't have much challenge managing stress during the day, but I know lots of people that do, and so that's how they use it. And so it's just a great way to bring some balance to your endocannabinoid system from a technical standpoint. And there's all kinds of articles on the blog section of our website to give people other ideas in this regard. But just given the chaos of the world we live in, heck, even before the current global issues, right? Pile that on now. We've certainly seen a spike in sales, but it's just another tool, like a good diet, like detox, to just support a healthy lifestyle.
Sure. And the other product is the super green juice, which I've tried. And the main thing I liked about that is just the convenience of being able to mix it up with water, because I've got a magic bullet juicer. And for a long time, I was juicing spinach leaves and throwing in some cucumber and stuff like that. And it's a bit of a pain to have to, it's a bit of a faff to have to prepare it in that way, and then you got the washing up afterwards. And I just found it very convenient to be taking these greens in this way. So that's another pretty good one on your books there.
Yeah, I see it just like you, right? I intuitively know what I should eat, but it's not always available, right? And I bet most of your listeners, I know your audience is a smart audience, right? They know the answer to the questions about what they should eat and not eat, right? But it becomes a question of availability, convenience, right? If you're going to properly juice, it's the time to go and buy those organic fruits and vegetables and then come back and chop and prepare and make your right combination so it tastes tolerable. You can have some combinations there that don't taste tolerable. And the chances that you're buying things at their peak of nutritional maturity, all certified organic, it's just not practical for most people. So we've just provided convenient access to 44 different organic fruits and vegetables that we know it's the right combination, satisfies what you need, and it tastes good without sugar, right? That's the biggest thing for me is I'm going to use this nearly every day of my life, and I want it to be palatable.
Yeah. Have you added any sugars or sweetener to that? Because it's got a sweet edge to it.
No, the combination of herbs in it and the combination of fruits and vegetables give it a natural sweetness. And so just enough apple, enough raspberry in there to give it that little bit of flavoring. So it's not a dominant sweet, obviously, but I've had enough greens drinks in my life that were so bitter, I felt like I'd just taken a big chew of grass from out in the yard. And so we worked hard on the flavor.
Yeah. I mean, with some of the concoctions I've made, I have to kind of hold my nose while I drink it and just block out the taste. Know that it's doing some good, but it sure doesn't taste like it.
Yeah. No, we worked hard on that, and I'd say I mean it's not going to make everybody think they're having a wonderful evening cocktail, but it's pretty darn good.
Sure. Now, as far as the Zeolite product goes, we've got an offer to my listeners, to my audience, which is going ahead right now. A trial offer. Maybe you just want to speak about that.
Yeah, I do, and for those listening, Mark reached out and wanted to work with us on this trial program. And so we're happy to do that. So for the next week, I don't know if it's a week or 8 days or what you guys have set up on the back end. But this is the product. It's called Pure Body Extra Strength. I don't know, the picture may be too small to really see it. You can see it on the website or go into the link. That's a product that sells for $79.95 US. It's our global number one seller. We sell it to some 50 countries, and like everything we have, everything's unconditionally 30-day money back guarantee, and we get all kinds of 5-star ratings. So I want your folks to feel comfortable. But basically, we've realized that if we can get people to try it, because it's a new idea, they're likely to come back again and again and again. So that's what we're counting on. So we make this available for $5. In most locations around the world, there's no shipping, some shipping cost in some places. When you go to the offer page, you'll be presented two choices. You can buy it for just the regular price of $79.95, or you can take it on subscription for $5. What that means is you're now subscribed to it at its next best price, which is $63.83 US dollars, and that'll come in 30 days. But if you receive the product and you don't like it for whatever reason, there's no strings attached here. You can just chat with us, email us, call us, however you want to communicate, and say, I don't want it. It doesn't matter why you don't want it. So you can turn that subscription off before it ever occurs. But what we know is that the vast majority of people will love the product. They'll probably like some of our other stuff too. And so this is a way for us to introduce ourselves to your community and start a relationship that we think is going to deliver good health to you and good, nice customers for us.
And you ship to the UK and there's no shipping cost there? How are you able to avoid that?
We actually have a warehouse in the UK. And so that's, we've been doing business in the UK since 2012. Some of our best customers and leaders of our organization are out of the UK.
Whereabouts are you here?
Just outside of London.
Okay.
Just outside of London. And so for most places in the UK, it's a 2-day ship time. Now, there have been, during the COVID issues, right, there's been some level of disruption. But for the most part, things ship conveniently on time. Since Brexit, we used to ship from the UK to Europe, and that was really quite convenient. We're now in the process of switching that. We'll eventually open up a warehouse in Germany, but right now service it from the US because there's just some paperwork challenges in the various borders. But we've enjoyed good relationships with customers all throughout the UK and other parts of Europe since we opened.
Okay, great. Well, Eddie, thanks for coming on the show today. Appreciate it.
Mark, thank you for having me.